What's up YouTube, it's your boy Australia Duel Masters coming at you with this video. Today we thought we'd do a card tech discussion video on each of the Miraculous Spells. We'll go through the effects of each card, cover a few key points on each card, and then give a suggested deck profile on each card. It's interesting to note that these are the only spells in the TCG which went past rare. We kick things off with Miraculous Meltdown. Miraculous Meltdown is a multi-civ Fire Darkness spell card which costs 6 mana to cast. Miraculous Meltdown is aesthetically pleasing to look at, the artwork just pops for a start. The effects of Miraculous Meltdown read that this spell is put into your mana zone tapped, which essentially means that if you want to charge Miraculous Meltdown in your mana zone, it will go into your mana zone tapped, meaning you cannot use it as mana for that turn. You will need to wait until your next turn to be able to use it as mana. You can cast this spell only if your opponent has more shields than you do. Lastly, your opponent chooses one of his shields for every shield you have. He puts the rest of his shields into his hand. He can use the shield trigger abilities of those shields. The ideal play here for Miraculous Meltdown is to play it when you have no shields left, so you can wipe out your opponent's entire array of shields. You will nervously sweat on whether or not you've hit any shield triggers though. Miraculous Meltdown combos incredibly well with Pyrofighter Magnus. As I touched on before, the ideal play is to cast Miraculous Meltdown when you have 0 shields, that way you can clear their entire shield zone. The next thing you'll want to do is summon a speed attacker like Pyrofighter Magnus to attack your opponent directly for the win. It's truly an epic play. Meltdown is best to play in control builds such as Rub Control as a one-off tech card, as this is where it is most effective. Meltdown is a great counter to aggressive deck types such as Fire Nature Rush, Water Fire Nature Aggro, just to name a few. Playing Meltdown against these brutal decks will give you a chance to level out the game. This Rub Control deck profile, which utilises Miraculous Meltdown, is incredibly similar to World Number 1 duelist Tom Rogers' build. The only differences being that we dropped a stream for an extra Eureka Charger, we dropped King Riptide for Twin Cannon Skyterror, and we also dropped the 2 Ghost Touch and opted for 2 Corpse Charger instead. Valerica's powerful search ability meant that it was chosen over max copies of Bolmedius. This deck has an answer for anything thrown its way and is highly competitive. It is fun to play because you always need to plan your next turn out in your head, but then be adaptable and have a plan B just in case things don't go to plan. Next we have Miraculous Plague, which is definitely one of the most coveted cards from the Miraculous set, especially in English. It rarely comes up for sale, and when it does, I've seen them sell for well over $400. Plague is also the only card in the Miraculous set to still remain in the Hall of Fame. It was originally listed in the Hall of Fame in 2009 because of its versatility. In other words, its ability to remove 4 cards at once. Being in the Hall of Fame means that under Japanese rules you may only have a single copy in your deck. Miraculous Plague is a multi-civ Water Darkness card which costs 7 mana to cast. The effects of Miraculous Plague read that this spell is put into your mana zone tapped, which again means that if you want to charge Miraculous Plague in your mana zone, you cannot use it as mana for that turn. You will need to wait until your next turn to be able to use it as mana. Choose 2 of your opponent's creatures in the battle zone. Your opponent chooses one of them, puts it into his hand and destroys the other one. Then choose 2 cards in your opponent's mana zone. Your opponent chooses one of them and puts it into his hand and then puts the other one into his graveyard. As you can see, you are clearly getting a lot of bang for buck with Plague. You're essentially removing 4 cards for 7 mana and taking your opponent back 4 turns. Plague works well with Merino builds, ramp builds, and turbo builds. Plague is best to play in control variants or mana burn control builds. Plague is a strong shutout card but isn't played in high variants or max copies due to the probability of drawing high cost cards live, which renders them ineffective if drawn in the early game. This Merino build is an example of a deck which has excellent synergy with Plague. It can get you out of some sticky situations. This deck is a tier 1 build and is highly competitive. Fel Eager is a central piece in this deck, which allows you to recycle your Plagues, because with Fel, When it hits the battle zone, you can return a spell from your graveyard to your hand. Mystery Ask fits nicely in the build as well, because you get to draw a card every time a creature is summoned on both your side of the field and your opponent's. It means you can get to your plagues faster. The versatility of this deck is what I like most. Every card is capable of being a game changer and has its purpose within the build. If you want a deck that is fun to play and highly competitive, this one is worth a try. Miraculous Rebirth is our next Miraculous spell. Rebirth is another one that is incredibly hard to find and very pricey. Miraculous Rebirth is a multi-civ Fire Nature spell card which costs 6 mana to cast. The effects of Rebirth read that, like Meltdown and Plague, this spell is put into your mana zone tapped and you cannot use it as mana for that turn. You need to wait until your next turn to use it as mana. Destroy one of your opponent's creatures that has 5,000 power or less. When your opponent puts that creature into his graveyard, search your deck. You may take a creature from your deck that has the same cost as that creature and put it into the battle zone. Then shuffle your deck. Miraculous Rebirth encourages accelerated field control. You destroy your opponent's creature and get to summon yours immediately for free. Rebirth combo as well with Kirill. You destroy your opponent's Kirill and then summon Kirill from your deck. Then you get to place a creature in your opponent's field onto the top of their deck, so your opponent loses 2 of their creatures in one turn. Because Rebirth contains the nature Civ, it can be played before turn 6 due to mana ramp with the likes of Fairy Life and Bronze Arm Tribe. There's been the age-old debate of whether Rebirth is better than Terror Pit. I'm not going to try and sway you either way or make your mind up for you, but it is an interesting discussion point to say the least. There are arguments Rebirth is better than Terror Pit because you get to destroy your opponent's creature and summon one immediately into your field of play. However, on the counter, Rebirth is restricted to destroy creatures of only up to 5,000 power, whereas Terror Pit has no restrictions and can destroy any creature with any power level. Terror Pit is also a shield trigger, which may just give it the edge. Rebirth is capable of crazy chain combos like this one. You destroy your opponent's Shadow Moon or any other 4-drop, bring Rothus out from your deck, destroy Kirsten Lair Delver, your opponent destroys a creature, you summon Valerica Dragon with Kirsten's effect and search for Uber Dragon Bajula. Not bad for just one play. Obviously a lot would have to fall into place for that to be possible, but it could happen nonetheless. We like Diabolical Drew's Miraculous Rebirth build, so we thought we'd share it with you. All credit to Drew. Now this deck actually was runner-up in Drew's tournament with Tam, where over 16 decks were played and this deck made it to the final 2. In the end, going down to Tam's Smash Warrior Petrova build. So that speaks straight away about the caliber of this deck. This build leverages off making the most of Essence Elf to get Rebirth out as cheaply as possible. Also the use of Bronze Arm Tribe to ramp your mana and get Rebirth out by turn 4 if possible. It leverages off drawing as many cards as possible with Miracle Quest and taking advantage of speed attackers like Rickaboo Screwdriver, Hyper Sprint Warrior Yuzol, and Shock Trooper Mikey, which means that you can draw 2 cards for each attack that turn, which aids Hulkus and Stream. Overall, it is a highly creative deck and certainly one worth trying. There's lots of awesome combos to be found within this build. Miraculous Truce is our next Miraculous spell. Truce is widely seen as the least exciting and coveted from the set. I think this is largely due to the fact that it is a hard card to build a deck around. I'm yet to see a good build containing Truce. It is the only Miraculous spell containing Shield Trigger ability. Truce is a multi-civ, light nature spell which costs 5 mana to cast, or you can cast it for free from your shield zone with its Shield Trigger ability. The effects of Truce read: Shield Trigger, when this spell is put into your hand from your shield zone, you may cast it for no cost. Like the others, this spell is put into your mana zone tapped. Choose a civilization. Until the start of the next turn, creatures of that civilization cannot attack you, even if your opponent puts them into the battle zone after you cast this spell. At the time of its release, Truce was dubbed as anti-Bombazar due to the heavy Bombazar meta that swept across the DM scene. This was due to Truce's Shield Trigger ability because Truce prevents a civilization from attacking next turn. Truce gives you the ability to freeze your opponent and their attacks for an entire turn. Sometimes in Duel Masters, all you need is that one extra turn, so Truce can come up clutch, no doubt. Truce will allow for you to get some unanswered shots with your opponent being unable to retaliate. Now, to be truthful, we are not too keen on this deck profile, and it's certainly not amazing by any means, but it's purely because we feel that, Truce isn't a card you can build a deck around. It's simply just a tech card for unpredictable situations. However, with that being said, to remain consistent with the theme of this video and providing a deck profile idea, we used the Gauntlets DM Plays Live and Breathe build, but made a few adaptations to it, obviously to make it TCG instead of OCG. This is essentially a liquid beatdown build that can be hard to fight the momentum of. So we feel as if this is one of the best builds we've seen containing Miraculous Truce. Our last and final card in the Miraculous set is Miraculous Snare, which is a multi-civ light water spell card which costs 3 mana to cast. Miraculous Snare is instant removal. It's a light and water, light and water actually doesn't have any other removal of this type, so it's nice to be able to target a creature that is giving you a hard time. Up until last year, Miraculous Snare had been in the Hall of Fame since 2008 due to its cheap cost and ability to put a creature of any cost into your shield zone, or into your opponent's shield zone. You can manipulate the game to what benefits you most. The effects of Miraculous Snare reads in true consistent form with other multi-civ Miraculous Spells that it is put into your mana zone tapped. Choose a non-evolution creature in the battle zone and add it to its owner's shield face down. Miraculous Snare is a viable method for removing your opponent's creatures. Your opponent is unable to access the creature you have placed in their shield zone until you are ready for them to do so. Snare is one of the cheapest ways to remove your opponent's creature from the field of play. Snare has excellent synergy with Bolmedius, as your opponent will never have access to the shields you have placed in their shield zone. Snare gets rid of big threats for minimal cost, or you have the ability to manipulate your own shields for game control by loading your shields with triggers like Aqua Surfer. A viable deck build option for Miraculous Snare is Wise Starnoid. With Snare you can choose to load your shields with Surfer and Colon, or you can choose to target your opponent's troubling creatures. Emerald is also in the deck to assist with shield manipulation, but can also add Holy Ore into the shield zone, due to Snare only being able to put a non-evolution creature into the shield zone. Emerald is also bait for Starnoid. Farsi is in the deck due to its ability to return a spell from the graveyard once it is destroyed, so you can get back your snares or ores. We feel that Farsi provides much more substance in comparison to Tolk for just 1 more mana. Also, Farsi is cheap bait for Starnoid. Snare concludes our card tech video on the Miraculous Spells set. Thank you so much for tuning into this video, guys. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed this video and got something out of it. It was truly exciting to be able to make a video on the Miraculous set, as they have had such a profound impact on the TCG and have created a lot more fanfare along the way. Please leave a like and comment your thoughts on the Miraculous Spells set. Which is your favourite and why? Would you have liked to have seen more Miraculous Spells released in DM12, the final English TCG set? Please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any exclusive content. Lastly, a call out to my fellow Australians. If you're from Australia and have seen this video, please join our Duel Masters Australia Facebook group, and as always, a link will be left in the description of this video. Thanks heaps, Duel Masters fans from around the world. Until next time, Australia Duel Masters out.